This session is hereby called to order. I request Mr. Sagar to introduce the speaker of this session.
Dear Ocean, President CMA, distinguished speaker of this session, Mr. Shyam Srinivasan, Mr. Mohandas, Chairman of this convention, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon to all. I have the privilege of introducing the distinguished speaker for this session, Mr. Shyam Srinivasan. After completing his graduation in engineering from REC Tiruchirappalli, he did his post-graduation in management from IIM Kolkata. He completed a leadership development program from London Business School. He worked with Standard Chartered Bank in India, the largest foreign bank in this country, where he was responsible for strategy, development, and management of the bank's consumer banking. Business spread across a large network of branches in India, employing over 6,000 people. Prior to that, he was country head of Standard Chartered Bank's consumer franchisee in Malaysia, where he focused on broad-basing the revenue streams and delivered significant increase in profitability while developing a strong team of local professionals. He worked with multinational banks in India and overseas, across Middle East and Southeast Asia, where he has gained significant experience in retail lending, wealth management, and SME banking. Sri.Shyam Srinivasan has taken charge as the Managing Director and CEO of the Federal Bank with effect from September 2010. Mr. Shyam Srinivasan's period with the bank has witnessed a tremendous growth. Under his dynamic leadership, the bank has registered substantial growth in top line and bottom line, and despite the challenging macroeconomic environment. The Q3 net profit of the bank is rupees 201.87 crore, recording a growth of 41.07% on a YOY basis, which is the best for any bank emanating from the state. The total income for Q3 grew by 40.33 on a YOY basis to rupees 1,604.76 crores. There has been a considerable reduction in gross and net NPA, especially at a time when banks are struggling with the menace of non-performing assets. Through Vision 2015, he intends to establish Federal Bank as the #1 player in the domestic market with its presence felt internationally. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Mr. Shyam Srinivasan.
Thank you for first inviting me and asking me to speak about my life, my message. When I was visiting Calicut about 4 months back, I think it was October, I met Mr. Roshan Kennedy and he insisted that I join a CMAs session today. Quite innocently I said yes, and knowing his persuasion capability, he ensured that I actually show up here today. But I have to say thank you for that, because we don't very often reflect on what we do in life, whether we're successful or we're failing. We don't spend too much time reflecting. But having said that, I will do a session today. Minimally, I said I must try to understand myself better, because if I have to talk to others about myself, I need to know myself a little better. So I did spend some time reflecting on my years in corporate life. And this afternoon is only, I don't claim to be a success. Mr. Chris Gopalakrishnan was before me. After me, Shashi Tharoor. So I'm really sandwiched between two stalwarts. And coming after lunch and thinking that I am the sandwich, I hope you're not hungry to eat me up. and he'll only listen to me and nod off. But on a more serious note, I don't think I can claim to be of any great success or anything. I still have a long innings to play, and I want to try and make a difference. But I'll only share this afternoon a few insights based on my reflections, and I do hope there is some value that you all take away. But I am requesting that I don't want to stick to the format of a long speech and short questions. I would flip it the other way around. A very short speech followed by many questions, because I think I want to use this opportunity as much as I can share for me to learn and trying to refine my own self. So with that preamble, let me begin by talking about what my reflections are. The topic, my message, if you Google it, the first thing that will come is Mahatma Gandhi's "My life is my message." But thankfully, the is missing in this, right? So it's not like my life is my message. I'm just going to talk to you about my life and my learnings, and therefore messages for anything that we take away. But 2-3 weeks back, about a month back, I met a consultant, Bangalore-based, and I was talking to him about employee transformation, how the market is changing, how we need to. All organizations are always under challenge and threat to improve themselves, how companies need to refresh their thinking. And for many of you who live and work here, Federal Bank is not new. But for somebody who lives outside of Kerala, Federal Bank is not that known a name as yet. And we have big aspirations as a bank to be truly national and international in our presence, and command the respect we deserve as an organization. And the whole journey in Federal Bank, me and the top team are obsessed about making a difference. Our whole thing is about being significant in our journey while we enjoy the journey. And significant is expressed as customer goodwill, employee goodwill, and of course financial outcomes are always what everybody measures us by, but I think I would go deeper and look at employee and customer goodwill. So in this journey of trying to be who we want to be, and also keep in pace or sometimes ahead of what's happening in the market, we're talking to many people, and one of the consultants who seems to understand, not banking, but understands mindsets of people, how to impact mindsets of people, how to influence shaping and thinking of people. We gathered together and I spoke to him, and he said his CV reads very interesting. He's a taekwondo specialist and a psychologist, and also claims he can change minds. So we said, why not experiment with 20-25 of our senior executives, and we invited him for a 2-day session. As part of preparing for that, he started quizzing me. And I realized in a very subtle way, he was actually probing me. And as he was probing me, I was trying to understand myself better. And today is really a reflection of that conversation which I had with him, because he kept asking me, saying that you say you are not yet successful, but why don't you reflect on, see, the 3, 4, 5 things that's worked for you that can be taken and given to your team, because if you are leading the pack, then you need to have that determination to make a difference. And so in the conversation, I started reflecting, and I formed my own sort of mental map on what I thought were working for me and what I thought I would share. So today is really an outcome of a conversation that stemmed, Roshan, thanks to you, over the last 3-4 months, and then a conversation with some of our colleagues within the organization, and a reflection of my years in, I would say, banking, but more largely I actually started out selling auto electricals in 1984 with Lucas TVS. So actually I first was an engineer in the field, then I think I was a bad engineer. I decided to become a management graduate. I probably was not a good management graduate, so Wipro also, I felt, oh no, this is too constraining, so let me try banking. So I went into banking in the late 80s. I started with Citibank in late 80s when they were sort of stepping up their consumer banking franchise in India. I started out in Chennai with Citibank, and then I was transferred to Mumbai. Then I went on to Middle East for almost 7 years, came back to India, worked in India for 4 years with Standard Chartered. Then I was transferred to Malaysia for 4 years. Then I came back to Mumbai in 2008. Then in the middle of 2010, I think the bug bit me of wanting to get away from the multinational world to the more real India. And around that time, an opportunity came up with Federal Bank. I don't know why they hired me. The board was quite kind to hire me because I don't speak Malayalam. I'm not from this part of the world. And still they were very generous in making me the offer to come and join as the managing director. And the last 16 odd months in Federal Bank has been a dream for me. It's as much a learning as it is an opportunity to make an impact. And that is the journey that we are on today. Since I'm talking about myself, and I said, let me begin with like about 900 million Indians, I'm also obsessed with cricket. Right? Even if Indian team performs badly, thankfully they won yesterday, but even if Indian team, like my wife jokes, she says it doesn't matter. As long as there are 3 stumps and somebody throwing the ball, my husband will always watch cricket. Right? So I am quite obsessed with the game. In fact, I grew up almost like anybody else with vision of playing for India and being a cricketer, and quickly, unfortunately, after school, that dreams disappeared because I didn't get past schools. But the dream stayed on. The passion to make a difference, the passion to be a cricketer or be something in my chosen area was lived on. And slowly, like this title says, cricket is India's passion. In America, they know it as an insect, no more, right? But in India, it is indeed a passion, and as you can see, whether you look at Lagan or you look at anything else, it's something that reflects the fabric of our society. But it's not so much as cricket, it's as much the spirit and the experience and the learnings that we all take away. I'm sure each of us takes away some learning from some chosen area of our life. For me, I use sport as a metaphor for learning. And therefore, I think my journey in cricket, while the game never took on, the passion lived on. And really, I want to focus on few things this afternoon. One is the whole thing about what happened in the game was less relevant, but what I took away from that is whatever choice I make, I want to try and make an impact. I want to try and make something that impacts, hopefully favorably, in my economics ecosystem. And therefore, the takeaway from sport was really about how does one take passion to what we do. And some of you may be aware of this movie in the early 80s. I was just finishing engineering in 83, and this movie was released called Flashdance. I don't know how many of you have seen this movie. It's about this very young girl who is a small town lady who her whole passion is to be a dancer and win the national dance competition. And the movie is brilliantly portrayed. It has a lot of comedy, but it's about the girl taking her passion and making it happen. And I'll just play only, not the full song, but this is just to keep you all awake. That is if it plays. You can get up and dance if you want. Sadly, the song won't go on, but the passion goes on. I just noticed as I was walking, and the theme of the conference too is on passion. So I feel quite inspired that unknowingly we have connected on the same spirit, because to me, in everything that we do, it is about passion. And I talked about cricket, but not making it there. So I chose banking, and I hope one day I'll make it. But it's about the passion we bring to what we do. And this line, take your passion and make it happen, as something that's guided me all my working years, because quite coincidentally, the movie was released in 1983, around the time I was setting out to work. So if there's one thing that all of us can look forward and be guided by. It's that inner calling and that higher purpose, and it's about passion to make that happen. And if you look at passion, it automatically means there's something that you make a choice. Right? It's not that you can be passionate about everything, then you're diluting your energy, diluting your spirit. So there are choices we make in life. By the fact that we make choices, we are saying yes to something and no to something else. By the fact we are saying yes to something and no to something else, we have to put, at least in my belief, much more into that chosen area of yes. And very often, when there's a yes, there's a no, there's always a post-choice dissonance. We choose something and then we sometimes live to regret saying, oh God, did we make a mistake? But I think that's the big difference between making a choice, if it's passionate choice, and believing and almost auto-suggesting ourselves to making that choice work for us. So when I started out, it was this dream to be an engineer. Thankfully, I got to be an engineer. And then from engineering, when most people in my time almost had a dream to go to the US. If I look at my class of engineers, I think 50% went off to the US. It was, I think it's still the same, but at that time it was a craze in my engineering college. For some strange reason, I said that's not my chosen area. I wouldn't even apply to go to the US. I want to be here. I want to try and make a career out of some choices I make. I started out as an engineer in Lucas, like I said, but then quickly made a shift to, went to the IIM. And then I started out working in Wipro for a year, transferred to banking. But the whole thing was around the choice of what we want to do and try to make that choice work for us. And in the process, I've believed in that Singapore Airlines very famously has a line which says, the journey is the destination. I don't know how many of you remember that byline of Singapore Airlines. This journey is the destination. And I want, like I said, the auto-suggestion that should work for each of us. I want us, at least personally, I try to believe that once we've made a choice, not all choices are always right, but once we've chosen some path, if with passion and if you truly believe in that journey, it almost becomes fascinating. And you're almost living a dream that most often is quite rewarding at a personal level. And I think if I look around or if I talk to my colleagues or look normally at people who claim to have some degree of success, it's often around how you feel about yourself. It's about self-esteem. The bank balance is important, but I think it's beyond bank balance. It's about how we feel about ourselves. It's how we wake up in the morning wanting to do more of what we did yesterday and try to enjoy that journey. And many of you in the mid-90s, I think it was mid-90s, there was a very good movie that came out. It was an English movie called 50 First Dates. I don't know how many of you have seen that movie. If you've seen 50 First Dates, if you haven't seen it, I'd encourage you to YouTube it or borrow a video or go into the net and see that. It's a light movie which describes to us our life. Because many of us, including me, we have this nasty temptation to complain about all the good things that serve to us. And we almost crave for something different. But if you look at people more successful and if you reflect on yourselves, your successful ones have been one where you've made the boring fun. Where we've done it every day with new energy and we've probably excelled in it. And this movie, 50 First Dates, is a light comedy which is all about this lady, Drew Barrymore. She suffers from amnesia. So she forgets what happens the previous day. Every morning, Adam Sandler has to come and woo her again. He has to express his love for her for that day, earn the love, go back, next morning comes and earns love. So the whole thing is about how you untiringly do the same thing and enjoy a great outcome. And if in our corporate life, which is often the biggest curse, because many of us complain about the fact that we're doing the same boring stuff, but if you take a leaf from 50 First Dates, suddenly life becomes a better taxi ride. Because if you're on a taxi ride, after the ride, the meter gets resets to zero. Whether you've done anything, the reset button is on, and the next day you start all over again. So I think the takeaway for me personally from 50 First Dates was how we make the boring more fun and how we truly enjoy the ride. And that was the takeaway from the 50 First Dates points that I was mentioning. And there is also at the same time a very famous Albert Einstein quote, which I'll come to in a moment, which you've all probably heard or read. Doing the same things all over again and expecting a different result is operating definition of insanity. So this is Albert Einstein's quote. He says, doing the same thing all over again and expecting a different result is the operating definition of insanity. So actually there's a curious conflict. At one end we are saying do the same thing, enjoy it. And the other side we keep hearing these lines from renowned people. But I think the takeaway in that, where it converges, is around the fact that in doing the same thing, are we innovative? Are we trying to make a refreshing difference? And therefore the expected outcomes are much more satisfying. Let me just turn to another point. I spoke about passion, how we choose something. Many ask me, Shyam, did you think you'd be managing director of a bank? 2-3 days back I was in one of the local news channels and she was asking me, sir, you're an engineer and how did you become a banker? And did you think you'd be a banker when you grow up? The honest answer is no. Did I think I would be a leader of people? No. But I don't know how many of you, can everybody recognize the bumblebee? The bumblebee you all recognize, right? Some of you do. Is it post-lunch that you want to stay silent, or am I boring? No, you're saying, others are not saying. The bumblebee, let me just try and get this clip. Try and watch this very closely, please. I don't know if you observed that the bumblebee actually flapped its wings and started flying. Right? According to the laws of aerodynamics, the wingspan of the bumblebee is not wide enough. So physics says bumblebees cannot fly, but bumblebees fly. Bumblebees don't know physics. They don't know aerodynamics. They just flap their wings and they fly. In my life, and I'm sure in many of your life, there are many bumblebee moments. We've all thought we can't do it, and we've done it many times. So for me, my personal message or insight or learning has been, I come from a normal South Indian background, not a family which is bestowed with wealth or a business. It's just like anybody else. You start working and you probably take your passion and give it your best shot. And chances are the divine powers, usually the universe conspires to help those who are obsessed with something. And I think those are the bumblebee moments in life. You want to be something, and if you're really obsessed, invariably you find there is a huge universal support that we didn't realize comes our way. And I think the bumblebee for me is a metaphor for how if we believe in something, and we are obsessed by it, and we are having a childlike innocence about not knowing the downfalls, we actually come out ahead. And I'm sure if you look back on each of your lives, there would be many bumblebee moments in your lives or your near and dear ones, which probably expresses what the modest and unphysics-knowing bumblebee succeeds with. I spoke about belief. All my speech I've been talking about passion, choice, and belief. And this is genuinely my personal belief cycle. I think all of us, if we are obsessed about certain things, which is our passion, our belief, it will dictate our behavior. We may consciously or unconsciously be following certain behavior patterns. And those behavior means we do things in a particular way, and it produces a particular outcome. This, not some rocket science what I'm saying, but like I said, just sharing with you my own personal belief cycle, which invariably dictates the outcomes of our choices, because the beliefs we have reflect in our behavior. For me, and if I'm standing here talking to you, it's not because I'm MD of a bank. I genuinely believe that in reaching out to people and trying to share or influence others' thinking, hopefully in the right way, gives me personal satisfaction. I'm not doing it because somebody insisted on doing it. I had a choice. I could have said yes or I could have said no. So it's my belief that if I can do something, and therefore hopefully my behavior is producing an outcome, which hopefully you will all find some value. Otherwise I'll know that it's not producing value. I need to go back and change, that I'm not good at what I think I am, and I need to rework my either my belief or my behavior. So I just use this as my mnemonic for my belief cycle. If it appeals to you, please take a look at it. If it doesn't, don't. I spoke about doing the same things all over again and expecting a different result is the operating definition of insanity. And it comes from none other than Albert Einstein. So we don't need to reflect on its veracity. I think he is probably somebody who knows it all, and I take a lot from it. In introducing me, Roshan spoke about, Sagar spoke about my moving to Standard Chartered in Malaysia. In 2004, November, I moved as the country head from Standard Chartered India to Standard Chartered Malaysia as part of a career progression. I took over the job from a very successful business manager. She was an icon, a lady business manager who had run the country with an iron hand for a fair number of years, very successfully. So I joined in October, November 2004, and she moved on within Standard Chartered to another job. I think in about 3-4 months, she got tired of being outside Malaysia, wanted to come back to Malaysia. Malaysians, like Keralites, are also very passionate people. They're very passionate people. They are also patriotic. So they don't like to work outside of their home country. So she went to Singapore, didn't like it, came back to Malaysia, joined a local bank. When she joined a local bank, particularly in these foreign banks, the first thing leaders do is hire people whom they have worked with, because it's easy to succeed with people you know. So she, one day, and I mean it in all honesty, on one day, in I think June 2009, 7 of my general managers resigned on the same day. Came into my office. This picture is actually a Shyam looking bewildered, almost like a queue of people who are walking in to resign. So having been on the job for 5-6 months in the country, new country, I like in Kerala, I don't speak the language, Malay also I don't speak. New guy, Indian in Malaysia. They don't particularly look at non-Malaysians very kindly. That to Indians, if you're white skin, it's okay, but Indians are not that good. So I figured that maybe I'm wrong. Then we did some introspection. Then I realized they were actually not leaving me, they were joining her because she was making a more compelling offer and they have a long-standing relationship. Typically in a situation like that, and it is a tough situation because your business gets suddenly challenged, because if your top team is walking out on you, all leaders are as good as their teams. If your teams are not good, you're not a very effective leader. So the one choice we had on that day was to go out and look for new leaders, hire from the market, or transfer people from somewhere else in the world into Standard Chartered in Malaysia. After speaking to some of my seniors, I decided, no, we will take a chance on the next layer of people. We will take a chance on people who have been in the bank, are ready to move, and maybe a year or two early. But if you take a bet on them, the bet will pay off, only because they have got something that they are really longing for, and more importantly, they want it. And therefore, there's a great chance that we will win, although this is not the most seasoned team. Very happy to say that we did that. Within a week of this bunch of people leaving us, the new team was on board, and that year we went on to deliver record profits. And it was only because, not because of the leader, But I think the team, A, took it as a challenge, B, were obsessed with wanting to prove themselves. And that is really my point. I give huge marks for will over skill. Skill can be acquired. Skill can be trained. Skill can be bought. But I believe it's the will which makes the determination of success or otherwise. And as you may have all heard and read, it's your attitude that determines your altitude. And we all know that. It's your attitude that determines our altitude. And for me, I thought I'll share this as an example of how a team that came together only because they wanted it so badly, they had the will to succeed, that they came together. A similar story in my current life in Federal Bank. You know, being somebody who is not from here, almost instantly people are saying, so how many people are you getting from outside? So are you going to hire people from outside? I'm very proud to say, Federal Bank is building its shop from within. Every one of my senior executives, barring one or two specialists who have come in, are from within. And they've moved and doing a remarkable job. In the coming years, we will build this to that sort of dream castle that we are all dreaming for from within. And I truly believe it's about the desire more than anything else, which is really the passion, which is really an outcome of the choices we make. We put our heart for it. I don't know if anything, any force can stop anybody. And that's the point I was saying about how the universe conspires to help when you are obsessed about something. So we spoke about belief, passion, choice, building. I'll now turn to my only one last theme around balance. Because typically passion allows us the right to commit excesses. Typically, if you see in life, we often say people who are very passionate are on either side of the extreme. And as leaders, one challenge is, much as we are passionate about something, there has to be that degree of balance, because that's what sort of gives the franchise or the business or the engine direction and command and control. And therefore, I think we live in an and world. It's not or. It's not growth or control. It's growth and control. And an example that will best describe that for everybody is, we all know Formula One car racing, right? Formula One car racers drive at 300 kilometers per hour. At 300 kilometers per hour, if you know your brakes are not working, there's no way on earth you will accelerate. You accelerate only because you know the brakes will work. Right? Otherwise, he has to get his head examined. Any Formula One racer will never clip on a car which is no brakes or no controls. So he clips only because he's confident that the brakes work. So it's really growth and control. In many ways, I believe control actually liberates. Control liberates and tries to give us that degree of freedom to do what we want to do as leaders and individuals. So I spoke about passion, choice, my belief, the build, and balance. I haven't intentionally spoken about either my family or my desire for sport or my faith in God. I would leave it for question and answers, and because I thought I want to focus on the business side, but happy to take question and answers. Before I close, I thought I'll share with you some very important lines that have guided me through the years. I spoke about will over skill. I'm sure all of you are familiar with this one, a rising tide lifts all boats. The next three quotes, I'll try to summarize from there. A rising tide lifts all boats. Tailwinds are horsepower. In the race for excellence, there's no finish line. What I want to stress here in these three slides is this is about the obsession for quality. If you look at this line, tailwinds are horsepower. When the winds are with you, you know you're succeeding. But if the winds recede, will you still succeed? If you take a sailor, when the tailwinds are with him, he looks like a good sailor, or your boat is rowing well. When the winds are against, do you have the engine, do you have the horsepower that can withstand, can overcome? So it suggests what your core is. Likewise, a rising tide lifts all boats. When the tide is high, everybody looks like they're floating. Suddenly the tide recedes, you have a new story. Tailwinds are horsepower. In the race for excellence, there's no finish line. Only when the water recedes, you know who's wearing trunks. All these only suggest that the core is more important, because then the environment supports. If the core is less than important, then in good weather you win, in bad weather you don't. And that is the distinction between, I think, good is the enemy of great. This is the first line of a book by Jim Collins, if you've all read that book. The first line starts with saying, good is the enemy of great. And I thought it's a fantastic description of how we all settle for, he's good, so it's good. But then that is the first step in not becoming great. And I think that'd be a useful insight you may want to consider. And therefore, the only way to predict the future is to create it. All my life I've been inspired by this poem. If you've all read this, it's by Rudyard Kipling. It's a long poem, but I just picked 4 lines from the poem, and I think it says much more than any speech can ever say. I genuinely encourage all of you to go through it if you haven't gone through it. It's a long, it's about 9 stanzas. It's a fantastic poem, and I'll just pick the ones that have inspired me personally. If you can make one heap of all your winnings, and risk it on one turn of pitch and toss, and lose and start again at your beginnings, and never breathe a word about your loss. I think this says the character that, what probably leaders should have, because on any business day, it's not going to be your way all the time. There are going to be so many challenges and so many obstacles, and sometimes the reset button goes right to back zero. Take India cricket team right now. Heroes to complete zeros. Wash out. 8 matches on a trot gone. But if they come back, suddenly we'll start celebrating. And there'll be a story again, how he, from the phoenix from the ashes, has risen again. But, just thought. The other is, this is really the very last point. There is a short story called The Verger by Somerset Maugham. It's a remarkable story. It's only 3-4 pages. I encourage everybody to read it. I spoke about good is the enemy of great as the first line in that book. This is the last line in this story. I'd be verger of St. Peter's, Neville Square. If you've read it, reread it. If you haven't read it, read it again. But let me give you a quick synopsis of the story. It's about this verger in the church, and he served it very honorably. One day he gets called by the clergyman, and he's told, "We are surprised, Mr. Verger." His name is Edward Foreman. "We're surprised, Mr. Foreman, that you don't know to read or write." So he says, "Yes, it is true, but I have served the church honorably for 16 years, so what's the problem?" So they say, "Yes, we appreciate it. You've done a fantastic job, but that you don't know to read and write can potentially cause an accident and an embarrassment for the church. So if you can't learn in the next 3 months, you have to leave." He thinks about it and he says, "I haven't learned for so many years, so I can't learn. I'm quitting." So he quits being verger, and he carries on quite dejected and feels like he's been let down. And he walks out and he's on his way home. And he says, "Let me light up a cigarette or a cigar or whatever." And suddenly discovers there is no shop on that road that sells cigarettes. There's no tobacconist. So it strikes him that if he started a tobacconist shop on that road, it'll be a business. And he starts one. He has great success with that. Then he starts another one. He has even more success. So he starts 10 and he becomes very successful. Now he has money in his hand. So he goes to a bank and puts it in his bank account. The bank manager says, "Wow, you have so much money. You must be a very important man. Why are you putting in savings account? Put it in a high yielding investment. I just sign a few forms." He says, "That's the problem. I can't sign forms." So the branch manager says, "Sir, you have so much money and you can't read or write?" He says, and the branch manager says, "What would you be if you could read or write?" He says, "I would be verger at St. Peter's, Neville Square." Right? So that is life. When that is life, combine that with bumblebee moments, suddenly we realize life has so many bumblebee moments for each of us. So in closing, I'll say, at least my journey, my message, I don't claim to be that I'm doing it. It's my journey. Passion leads to a belief, which leads to about choices we make. We build something because we bring in balance. So this is really my message. And on that note, I'll only tell you the one line that's lived with me all through my life, which my mother taught me when I was very young. More things are wrought by prayer in this world than the world dreams of. Right? So on that count, thank you very, very much.
I think you can answer the question sitting here.
Yeah, sure.
Please. Sagar, please.
Yes, the first question is from James W. Hunt, Chartered Engineer and Consultant. His question is, educational loans vis-a-vis NPA, how can we make it well-defined and easy for the intelligent and merited student and difficult for the scheming dullhead?
I think this was about, I thought it was about my life, my message, but it's about my bank, my message. I think this educational loan thing is quite a tricky one, right? All banks go through a challenge on this. Because one end is that you want to inspire and offer the best for young and deserving students and help the whole nation in terms of nation building and helping individuals. But like you pointed out in the question, there are unfortunately some elements which are misusing the benefits. But I don't want to wear a lens of negativity and say it's all bad news. There is always, in any sample, there will be 5-10% which is the negative. Maybe in the area of education loans, because of some political compulsions, it's probably higher. It's maybe 20%. So that's the cost of doing business. Increasingly, I think students are becoming more savvier because the credit bureau is now a reality in India. So as young students know that if they default 5, 7, 10, 15 years later when they go for their home loan or their car loan or their auto loan or their personal loan, the first thing will be a reject because the credit records are now forever. So I think slowly the change is happening. Relatively, semi-urban India, rural India hasn't started seeing the concept of a credit bureau impact yet. So people think that it's not going to. You will see that it is not very far. It's already knocking on many doors. So in the coming years, the good will automatically filter out from the bad. And there will always be 5-10% which is not going to be good, but that doesn't worry me because if you're talking of a large country, there will always be exceptions. So it shouldn't worry us. The whole format of a credit bureau which influences your future borrowings, which will ensure that people don't go haywire with their borrowings. I think that will automatically become a part of the day.
Okay, the next one is from Amarnath Palat. His question is a tricky one. Between belief and results, behavior and processes, did emotion and logic got into conflicts?
Very good question. I think it's a good question. I'll try to share with you my thought. I did mention that passion dictates a belief, and passion usually is used as an excuse for excesses. Right? Because you can, under the guise of passion, do something extreme. And that's why I brought in the spirit of balance, and which is really the one thing that leaders need to work hard on exercising, because we can't have a one-way ticket of I'm passionate about something, so let me just go to the very extreme, because particularly businesses you do for greater good. It's not for just yourself. It's either you're influencing your shareholder, your investor, your stockholder, your customer, whatever, whoever is your stakeholder. So I think the conflict between emotion and result, the fine edge is the balance that you need to bring in. And that is what I think distinguishes a more successful leader than somebody who is less successful, because sometimes this whole thing of extreme success makes you feel like a demigod, and people end up going into the excesses. And if you look around in the Western world, most failure came because of megalomaniac behavior by people. They went into an extreme, and therefore they started thinking that their word was law. And that sort of dictated a particular outcome which reduced in the long run and introduced problems. So I think the only solution is a greater self-awareness and balance.
The next one is from Durga Mahadevan, PNP. Federal Bank has been a wizard in NRI deposits in Kerala. Would you like to share the secret? Are you going to do that?
If it is from PNB, sorry.
Okay, next one. No.
No, I'm happy to talk about it. It's the strength of the bank. Right? I think I'm a lucky beneficiary, right? I came in only 16 months back. The bank has been a giant in the NRI business now for years. And it goes back to three things, as I usually say. One is we have a real reach in the Middle East, which is our largest catchment, and we've invested behind putting more people there. Two is we have a fantastic catchment network here, which again serves as a resource of coming in for the customer. Three, I think we have got products today which I can very proudly say others are still copying. I'll give you an example of a product called Fed Flash. Before I finish this sentence, and I mean it, before I finish this sentence, the remitter's money will be in the remittee's account. That's as good. Before I can finish saying hello, the money will be, and both will get an SMS confirming money sent and money received. And I think those are something that the bank has invested behind for years, and I take great pride that others are still struggling, including PNB, whom I have a lot of respect for.
Again, this is from PNB.
Oh, I must call Mr. Kamath. What is that?
Yes, NS Rao. Cyber crimes are many, especially relating to bank accounts. What steps can be suggested for arresting cybercrime and protection to the customer?
I think it's a great question. Many things are happening. In fact, very interestingly, just 23rd January when we had the Federal Bank board meeting, one of our directors made it as an action point for me to go back and come with an action plan on how we are working on cyber crimes. One is just simply more awareness. If you see both the customer and the staff, raising the level of awareness is a must. Second, the same technology that is used to build something needs to be used to check the something, which is why this whole thing of ethical hacking is becoming a big thing. The ethical hacking is now a big thing, and we need to sort of actively sponsor that. Third is the use of technology in terms of understanding the nature of the fraud and therefore building systems and procedures which catch it at the point of occurrence and not long after it's happened. And the fourth is around technologies like what we call two-factor authentication, which is basically, it don't rely on just one check, but it has much more than that in terms of check. And it has a level of personalization, which therefore, hopefully, unless the customer himself chooses to be a fraud, which can happen, the compromise is reduced. But cybercrime in the period ahead will be a large part, and whether it's petty or it's mega, first is awareness, second is continuous testing and self-destruction by the manufacturer, third is using technology itself to help the outcome.
I hope PNB senior management is not going to give a call to Mr. Shyam Srinivasan. Anyway, next one is from Dr. Jessina Merchant. Leaders are not born but made. How does your life stand as a testimony to this paradigm?
Like I honestly said at the beginning, I don't profess to be anything like, anything of the nature of or stature as yet. I am still in my journey. But I believe leaders can be made, and as long as two things. One is you want it and you will it and you obsess about it. And if you're obsessed about something, you're putting your very best and passion behind it. And I genuinely believe every choice means you're saying yes to something and no to something else. And the no is more difficult in life than the yes. It's easy because all of us get so many things in front of us and we want it all. And I believe the distinction between very successful people you can model and check, they've made choices and probably early and stuck to those choices and have been passionate about that choice. And in the case of successful leaders, that must be it. I mean, you take anybody, whether it's a Steve Jobs or the more contemporary Narayan Murthis of the world, they've made choices, they've made some trade-offs, they've given up something else. And once they've given up something else, they've been obsessed with the ones that they've chosen. So I'm not speaking for myself. I don't claim to be anything of any significance. I would love to, much as many others would love to, but one day.
Well said, sir. The next one is from Dinesh Verma, Business Development Manager, SB Global. Future of Islamic banking.
This is quite curious. I mean, just 3 days back, we were doing an address of our new hires in Alua. And one young man asked me, sir, what is the future of Islamic banking in India? I don't know if the same person is here in this room or...
Related.
I don't know. I can't believe 3 questions are quite consistent. Anyway, see, I was explaining to him, India has more Muslim population than even Pakistan and growing at the fastest rate. So I think Islamic banking as a concept in India will come. But there are 2-3 issues around the whole Sharia principle, and I can speak with a little confidence on Islamic banking because in my role in Malaysia, I launched Islamic banking for Standard Chartered. So I have very marginal understanding. I see some people of the Muslim faith, so please don't take me wrongly. I'm no expert, but little I understand. I think level of knowledge in India for banking purpose is yet graduating, and they haven't found that as a segment and pursue it. Some flimsy attempts by others have failed, but I believe in the next 3 to 5 years you will see Islamic banking as a vertical emerge. Not so much as because Islamic banking will emerge, because the whole spirit of segmentation will change, will be a reality in the... When you take a mass of 1.2 billion people, you can never be everything to everybody in life. Nobody can be everything to everybody all the time. So by the spirit of the fact that we have 1.2 billion people and growing, and every business wants to be profitable, they will start slicing the market into different shapes, as vertically, horizontally, you name it, in any form. So one of the verticals that will emerge is Islamic banking, because it's a significant part of India's population. And the faith will ensure that people need to bank, and they're as important as customers. So over time I see that happening, but not as yet. I think still people are testing waters.
The next one is from Basant Chandan, CEO Malabar Hospitals. His question is, has working in different locations made you more flexible and compatible, and stronger to working different environments? How important is the exposure of working in different environment make you successful?
I think everybody should expose themselves and push themselves to work in unfamiliar territory. I will, with due respect, don't get upset. That's a weakness of Keralites. When they're inside Kerala, they love it here and don't want to step out. Those who have gone out have excelled. I feel there must be a conscious effort for people to break out of their comfort zone. I'm a lucky beneficiary. I was born in Trivandrum by a strange coincidence. I grew up in Tamil Nadu. I worked in, I think, 7 or 8 markets, quite fortunately. And each one teaches me a different lesson. And if nothing else, you shed inhibitions. You take the local populace into greater understanding. I genuinely believe people should make a very, very sincere effort to work in multi-location and get cross-functional. One thing which I didn't refer to in my speech, like any other young banker, you want to do the most glamorous things. So when I was in 1994, when I was in the Middle East, I was the head of sales. It's the most glamorous part of the bank. And my boss then said, sorry, we are transferring you to run credit collections and customer service. For a week, I was really shattered. I said, how can this happen? I'm a sales star. How can you move me out? He told me one line, Shyam, many years later, you'll thank me. And I really thank him for that, because he pulled me out of my most comfort zone, put me in an area which I was not familiar. But 6, 7 years later, I felt like I knew the bank from different angles. So one is the geography working, and two is the functional areas. We need to do things that we are not familiar with. And again, the bumblebee story will happen. I don't know if that helps.
No, it does. It does. Come out of your comfort zone, as they say. The next question is from a stockbroker. His name is Uttara Ramakrishnan. The advent of technology, is banking losing its personal touch?
No, on the contrary, I think banking is enhanced because of technology. The one challenge which all of you would have read is the whole thing of customization is marketing to a mass of one. That's the whole spirit of customization. Each of us as human beings want to be the only customer for our bank or for the shop we go or the product we buy. We would love it if we were the only client and we got all the service as though we were the only customer. But the truth is we are not. We are one of 1.2 billion. The experience of being the only one can only be by the value that technology can bring. Is if I know Sagar shops here, saves so much, spends so much, likes this, doesn't like this, travels this often, travels by this, if I can analyze and come to more meaningful, personalized offerings, he would love it. How it is offered is the way, the style of the organization. You have to bring in the personalization and the offering. But I think technology is the ultimate supporter of that capability.
Culture of leadership drives the performance of the organization, rightly said. The next one is from engineer Zabir Hassan Nagor. He's a chartered consultant engineer. From cricket to engineering, from engineering to finance, and a music lover. What will be impact of banking passion to the future and its social influence on the future society? The journey is on. Where will be the final destination?
Is it for me or is it a generic question? No, seriously, I mean, is that question for me as a person?
Engineer Zabir Hassan, who's
See, I don't know if it's a very right statement, but like all of us, right? Every 5, 10 years, you're shaping your thinking better and you get more committed to a new theme. If you ask me 3 years back, would you kick up a foreign bank job and go and work in a private sector bank, and that too in a territory unfamiliar? I may have said no. But in March 2010, a bug bit me and I said yes. So if you ask me 5 years from now, would you be doing something else? I don't have the honest answer, but I know that I would love to be doing something that influences others' lives. That much I know. That is what I want to. I'm hoping the universe will conspire to make it a bumblebee moment for me.
The next one is from Atif Mohammed Ashraf. Has engineering degree helped or benefited you in your management methods?
I don't know if it's direct benefited. It obviously, by the fact that I'm a trained engineer, it gives me hopefully some logical, analytical capabilities. And that gives me the ability to try to slice the problem into different dimensions. Because one of the things that most managers do or most leaders do is 90% of the time you're handling problems. Nobody comes to you with good news. Never. Right? That's life. If it's going well, nobody will come and tell you, sir, it's going well. Invariably, you're only listening to somebody's problem or something is going wrong or some fire somewhere. And therefore, you're almost in a firefighting mode. And when you're in a firefighting mode, if you have an ability to analyze and segment an issue, chances are you're breaking the problem into smaller problems. And they always say, solve a big problem by breaking it into smaller problems. So I'm assuming from that point of view, my engineering is helping, but I don't know. I've forgotten all my engineering basics. So I think that's why I never became one.
The next one from Samir, entrepreneur settled in China. For an entrepreneur, fueled by passion and will, but lacking in MBA skill sets, what are the chances of success for such people?
Fueled by passion and will, and not an MBA. I think this MBA thing is a little overdone, right? Yes. We give it too much. I mean, yes, it is a good visiting card, right? If you say you're from IIM or something, people give you a little more respect. But I think before long, people forget that you're from IIM or whatever. I genuinely think it's the obsession and the discipline that matters. What probably the premium schools teach or management teaches is a little more discipline and a little more structure. But there are, in this room, I'm sure there are many successful people who never went to management schools, right? And who can write a management theory today. I remember meeting Mr. Kochi Joseph some time back. He's probably one of the successful businessmen I've seen in recent past, and he doesn't claim to have a management degree. So I am not of the view that, yes, it helps. What it does, I think the fact that you went through a grind to get to MBA, which means you fought odds, you cleared some obstacles, has shaped you to be something. What you study is okay, it's useful, but what you get out of it is the experience of having fought odds, which is really the thing. So if this gentleman is in China, he's probably seeing the most number of entrepreneurs there. I don't know who is the person here, but yourself, right? You know, if I've been to China many times, and they're just a dream. I mean, the way they are entrepreneurial about what they do. Would you agree? Yes. And half of them never go to management schools, and they're very successful. Yeah, they can't. The women there are more aggressive than the men are.
Education without values has got no meaning. This is the last question. It's from Amarnath Palat. Winning and losing, from the poem, The Cricket Passion, applied on your job. How fast one can get up from a loss? Is there a criteria?
I don't think there's any criteria, but I think character is when the chips are down. Leadership character is when the chips are down. And we all face that in business. I mean, almost all the time, there's something that is stacked against you. And people who display the ability to pull themselves, and more importantly, their teams, out of a tough situation and keep the inspiration alive to win, will be the absolute winners. And particularly in India, more than many other markets, you're always fighting hundreds of odds, right? I mean, the ecosystem is not the most friendly in India. Take the 2G. Poor fellows invested, suddenly they have said that the whole thing is a waste. So the odds are always against the people in business. And therefore, the leaders who can pull out of it with great courage, determination, and a sort of ability to wind forward and look at 3-5 years ahead will be the people who can shape victory. So there's no timeline, there's no magic formula, but I think it's an obsession and an ability to step 5 years, 3 years ahead and put yourself in that place and walk back, which probably helps more success.
Friends, the beginning, sir was mentioning about post-lunch, but I really felt that it's not post-lunch as if we have been right from the morning itself. We are in this room. For the last 1 hour, I think we have been really more than 1 hour, 10 minutes almost inspired. One of the finest talks, perhaps, that has happened in this auditorium. In fact, sir has driven all the way from Cochin just to participate in this function, whereas management of time concerned is sharp on time. So that is, we were also exactly started the session by 2 o'clock. So in between, see, when he was talking about his success, his sir mentioned about the passion, his passion. It's so lucky that our theme, contribution to nation building by igniting the passion to excel, also matches with his mind. And he talked to us about choice, belief, building, and a balance in life also. Of course, the most interesting was the bubble-bee moments I think many of us have in our life. Many times this happens, and how we come out of that is the most important message that one we could gather from it, the takeaway what we could. And see, in his case, it's just a question was raised, the story of an engineer becoming a banker, and a very successful banker, not a young banker. Madam from Punjab National Bank, you posed a couple of questions, I know. So, see, that is why Federal Bank in Kerala is so successful, I can say. Because, see, when he joined from Standard Chartered Federal Bank, we surprised that we thought that he came with a bat. Here also he started with a bat. So I think all round we have been batting and bowling and batting and bowling. I think entire federals, we call it federals in Federal Bank, throughout the country, started playing cricket. Unfortunately, I think now we need to have some inspiration, not from Indian players, but from Australia or somewhere else. Yeah. Anyhow, we keep on playing. Now, not only cricket, the HR, the changes that ours are very well known to you, and giving us a very inspiring talk. And on behalf of the entire people assembled here, and on behalf of Calicut Management Association, I would like to present, and I'm inviting Mr. Muhammad Ali, Chairman of Paris and Group of Companies, to please come over and hand over this memento to Mr. Shyam. Again, to repeat, this is a painting by National Award winner Francis Kodankandatha, and he is just for, and this is one of the finest painting, and he has exhibited a lot of paintings here. I think those are all very good and very expensive too.